What were the other ones? Hip hop, video, and what else?
Internet, websites, even websites. Who wants to read a long website? You want to watch it.
YouTube. Sorry, Ron, I know you can't see that. It's okay. Okay, what all of this stuff is, there's a term for this. It's called secondary orality. And orality is story, song, dance, drama, proverb. Okay? That's what orality is. Those are the primary components of orality. Okay? And we got all of them. And when it comes to us through technology, instead of, and now Diane and Dawn, I'm going to come back to you, to the point you were making. When it comes to us through technology, it's secondary orality. When it comes one-on-one, you know, we're there and you get all the feeling of it. If you're sweating and hot out, you're feeling that. But if you're getting it through secondary orality, you can be very removed from reality. But it looks incredible, right? So it's dangerous. But we can use that to our advantage. But this is secondary orality. Hip-hop is story connected in song. Africans do that all the time. I wish you could, I can see right now, and there's no way I can tell this story or demonstrate Dinka women dancing story and music together. It's phenomenal. Where I was and saw that, it's unbelievable. And the Jur, women doing this, connecting all three of these things together. They're brilliant at it. Their old men get together and they solve problems in the community and they sit around, they talk, and they put all the issues out on the table just like we do. And then they start, one young elder will stand up and he'll try to summarize it, and I think we ought to do this. That ain't right, boy. And another one will stand up and he'll throw something in. And the last guy to speak stands up, and he's usually the respected one, and he's listened and heard everyone, and he stands up and he says, you know, we believe, and he quotes a proverb. And this is what we ought to do. And they all say, yep, that's it. And then all they have to do is walk away and remember the proverb. And they have the whole conversation in their hip pocket. And then go apply it. That's orality. Okay? Drama is movie. It's plot. It's people doing stuff, moving somewhere, you know, telling a story dramatically. Okay, YouTube, the internet, video, hip-hop music, and other kinds of music. What about country and western? I mean, tell me that's not story put. It is, and you know, the more it is our lives, the chances are, oh yeah, that's me, I'm buying that one, you know, I'm downloading that one on my, okay. That's what music, okay, it's what it is. Okay, so we have a problem, don't we? We have a problem. Okay, so let me ask you, do you think that the average guy in your own community, and all your churches are not in the same community, so just think about your own now. Do you think the average man, woman in your community, maybe even child in your community, if they walked into what you did yesterday morning at church, what would they experience?
I think it's strange.
They would think it's strange. I've never done this before. I've never heard this before. I've never seen this before. Add to that a culture, a climate where I don't trust them. They think they're better than I am. I think they may be after my money. I'm pretty sure they're after my kids. And what happens?
Disconnect.
Never come back.
They never come back, and denominations are dying. Okay, in these 3 days, in these 3 days, you're going to know why we're dying. And now you know one of them. One of the reasons we're dying is that we are communicating a very good gospel in the wrong way. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is what we started with this morning. They don't believe we care deeply about them, and they are right. And it takes both of those. And you are in position to do something about that. And if you don't, your church is going to die. It may not die while you're there. And some of you got more money than others, but it's going to die. What I learned in Midland, like we had more money than everybody, right? I mean, like Midland is $125 oil. Things are pretty good in Midland. Because we had money, it insulated us to the brutal facts that we were irrelevant to most of the community. I'm not picking on you. I was on staff. I'm not picking on anybody. It's just a fact. And so the more money we have, the less we have to deal with this because we can kind of buy our way, keep going until, you know, we don't have that anymore.
And these people bring the money.
Yeah, most of the time. So you know what that means? Tell me what it means. Let's just be honest. We want them, and when they give their money, okay. I mean, anybody surprised by that in here? Sorry. You know, it's the church, but okay. And this is not new with us. Did James not talk about this? Don't show favoritism? But we do. Why? Well, because I need that guy's tithe. Okay, we need everybody's tithe at BRCC, so like if any of you want to stop giving to your church and start giving to us, we ain't got any money. You know where most of our people are from? And they're lost. And this year we've had hundreds come to faith. Hundreds. For 20 years, every year at BRCC. Hundreds of people out of the pagan pool are crossing the line of faith. It happens all the time. All the time. And we have stories about those people. And I'm not bragging about BRCC, but we got this figured out. And we have a culture that cares about people far from God. And every time we can empty a seat, it'll fill back up. We're not having any problem growing. We just don't have any money. Like the guy that runs the children's, you know, the kid, so student and children's, you know how much money he has? Oh God, I don't want to say this wrongly. Either one's going to shock you. I'm pretty sure it's every quarter. He has $1,500. And we had 5,000 there this weekend. He has $1,500.
How's he going to buy Xboxes for all the
Yeah. Okay, I don't know. I'm just telling you, a bunch of kids are coming to faith. And they love it. And they're getting baptized. And their parents are. It's happening. And it's because we got two things figured out. When people walk in, okay. Yesterday. You know what the title of the sermon was? The Story of Johnny Cash. All right, so you walk in, and the announcements are playing. Johnny Cash would have been 80 yesterday if he were still alive. All right? So you walk in, and stuff's going on, the screens, and you're listening to Johnny Cash. It's like a Johnny Cash classics, you know. And we got, we don't have any money. We got $1 million sound system. It's like awesome. So we spend our money very differently. We're going to talk about that in a second. And what little bit we got a screen all the way across the stage. I don't know how many feet long it is. It's big. We just got it. 20 years. I mean, we should have had it long before. We would have. We don't have any money. Am I making my point? Any of y'all feeling sorry for us? Okay. No. So you come in and you're hearing Johnny Cash down, walking the line, and they didn't play my favorite, A Boy Named Sue. I was kind of sorry about that. And so that comes in. Then the band comes out, and if you come, we do give earplugs at the door. And it's awesome. The band was awesome. We had 1,000 people Wednesday night for Ash Wednesday. How many of y'all did an Ash Wednesday service? Okay. Did people come? Did you put ashes on their forehead? Okay. We had 1,000 people on Wednesday night. You know why we did an Ash Wednesday service? Do you think we're overly concerned about Lent? Well, we all went to Southwestern.
Most of them were Catholic background.
It's our culture. I'll use any motive to get the gospel out, right? We'll do anything. I put ashes on like 250 people's head. Me. It's like a Baptist boy putting ashes. I can't believe it. I didn't even get any on my forehead. I don't know, it was a step for a jump. Maybe next year I'll get some. But this year I just did it. And it was meaningful. There were times I felt like Jesus, where like, let the little kids come to me. These parents would come up with their little kids, and of course they want ashes. And I'd get to bend down, and for everybody I said, Tembea na Yesu, walk with Jesus. Tembea na Yesu. And these little kids, they don't know what I'm saying, but I felt like I was connecting with these people. Okay, it's ashes in the form of a cross. That kid doesn't know anything. Doesn't matter. So, the band comes out yesterday, and I mean, they rocked it. They rock it every week. It's loud. I love that. How many of you like 70s rock? You got 70s rock on your Pandora. Am I the only one, really? Okay, bro. Thank you, 2 of us. All right. Yeah, and I'm listening to that stuff coming in yesterday. Okay, that's why I'm so spiritual today. So they're rocking it. Then we bring in a guy. Doug comes up, and Doug looks like a thug, all right? I mean, this guy, he's one of our teaching pastors. He can grow a beard like dark, and his eyebrows are big, and you know, his hair, he gets out of the shower and he does that to it, and he's done. And he's not young. He's 40-something trying to look cool. And he's, you know, so he's got these black, heavy glasses on, and he just looks weird. And Doug comes out and does a little intro to Johnny Cash, and then we bring in a guy. I don't even know how we paid for him, because, by the way, did y'all know we hadn't got any money? Okay. And this guy has got like a Elvis, not Elvis, well, Johnny Cash. Of course, he's mimicking. He's got this, like this hairdo. Remember when Cash's hair all went up in the front? You guys remember that? Okay, he had that. And this guy imitates Johnny Cash, and he did like 3 songs with our electric guy, Corey Winfield, who, you know, he came to us. I mean, he reeked of marijuana when he came in years ago, and now he's one of our leaders. And the guy went over and picked up a bass. And so now we got this big bass on stage, and he's playing that, and this guy's singing Johnny Cash songs, and he was good. And people, when he gets done, they're giving him an ovation, and they still don't know where all this is going. And then Doug got up, and he wove together in what I would consider his most brilliant talk I've heard him give yet. Doug wove together the Johnny Cash story with the story of people in the audience. And you talk about a lot of our people could relate to Johnny Cash. I mean, drugs, addict, I mean, thousands of them like that at BRCC. And he wove Johnny Cash's story, and he wove their story, and he wove the scriptures into that, and he wove a little bit of his own story into it. And it was meaningful for many people. Okay, that is everything we're talking about here applied on Sunday morning. And people that are far from God, and many who are near to God, but they got junk in their lives too, right? Just like all of us. They walked out of there, and God moved on them. I don't know how many people were saved yesterday. But normally we have hundreds of people who are lost in our services every weekend. And usually when we give invitations, usually we'll have close to 100 people in a weekend come to faith. And we give an invitation about 6 times a year. And at Easter, times like that, we'll often have several hundred come to faith in one weekend. Y'all, this has been going on for 20 years. It's not uncommon. So what we've done is we figured this out. And what we're going to talk about tomorrow afternoon and do tomorrow afternoon is the other piece of the puzzle that is your story and the relationship that that builds and the culture that it has developed inside BRCC. And I'm just telling you, I'm not suggesting any of you should be what we are. I'm not suggesting any of that. All I'm saying is we got this figured out and we take this seriously. And me, the missionary, I'm the worst at the language and I'm the worst at understanding the culture. I've only been there a year and a couple months. Even though some of the ideas for doing Missions 101 that we apply at BRCC, my best friend who's the senior pastor, he got those from me when I was on the mission field, but he applied them here at home. But I'm still the one lagging behind in these. But we have a model of church that takes the major bridges and barriers into consideration, and we use this stuff. And it's important for us. All right, let me give you a few specific ideas on that, all right? And these are just a few, but just note these down. Because some of you are going to say, how can our church, how can we change? And we're not going to answer all those questions today, but here's just a couple of, 2 or 3 things you could do. Number one is I would say that you need to, I'm going to say you need a production process, okay? If I can say that, I'll explain it to you. You've got to look at a production process. Secondly, you have to think differently about how you teach. Thirdly, you have to think differently about music. And even more than music, you got to think about what the weekend is for. And I'm going to talk about all of these. You got to think not only about teaching, and by that I mean education, but also mean the preaching of the word. And then you got to think about hiring, how you hire, and how you use your money. All right, let's start right here at hiring. How many video technicians do you have on your staff? Couple? All right. Few? How many of you don't know what I'm talking about? Okay, that's fine. No problem. All right. How many producers have you got hired on your staff? Okay, who produces your services?
We have a huge band.
Holy Spirit.
The music director does. Exactly. How much time do you think he thought about the production of it? Okay, now, why does that matter? Oh, because most of America watched the academies last night. Or they watched the halftime show at the All-Star game. Or the halftime show at the Super Bowl. Were those produced? Oh, yeah. Okay, whether you liked them or not, just forget the content. Just leave that aside. The production was off the charts. But I'm telling you, younger people, they walk into a place and they instantly know whether they think they're going to get anything there or not, and they know instantly whether they're coming back. Unless they get very surprised. They know whether they're coming back almost as soon as they walk in. And the reason is because of this issue right here. Folks it is so much a part of our culture to YouTube, not even YouTube, that's low production, but video, TV, events that they go to. How many of you go to a Houston Rockets basketball game, or I go to see the Spurs occasionally? Have you ever just sat back and said, this isn't really about basketball? It's really about all the stuff that's going on around it, right? It's an event. Can you hear their music at those events? Oh, and don't you love it when they, like, you know, they're getting ready and they play like a song you love for about 5 seconds and you wish, oh, come on, just keep playing it a little longer. And they don't, but they're, okay. That's a production. People are used to that. Now, I know there's a lot of issues that swirl around this, and I get that, and I'm not really trying to take some position on this, but what I am saying is we've had a lot of discussions about whether or not we should have a production on Sundays, but I'm just telling you that the culture we live in, they go to productions all the time. And when they walk into the thing we call church, and it doesn't look or feel like anything that they would expect at an event, and church is an event, whether you think it is or not, it is an event. And they walk in and they say, this is altogether different than anything I've done ever in my life. There's a good chance that they're going to feel, okay, I don't think so. I'm not getting it. In fact, it may be that it's not even communicating with them, right? But the deeper issue is even if all we were going to do on Sunday morning was what we call discipleship, wouldn't we still use this? Yes. Because this is communication. Okay. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to think about hiring differently our categories. I'm going to question that you need another minister of education on your staff. I don't think so. So enough said about that. Okay. We've had all the discussion I want to have about that. That's not the main thing I'm trying to show you. I'm not trying to get you to be BRCC. Okay, I do want to talk about this one. And big church has to be authentic too. And if I can just connect these, I think that's a good place for us to connect. Because I'm a teaching pastor. I speak on the big stage. Most pastors that came out of where I came out of are never taught value for authenticity on the stage. And what we're going to do on Wednesday afternoon is we're going to talk about narrative preaching, and part of it is telling our story on stage. It's a part of it. And I think it has to be there in many of our talks. Okay, in many of them, Brandon. In many of our talks, we have to interact with what we're teaching, and people have to see us. Just by virtue of where we are on the stage. That is the leadership moment of the week. And if they can't connect to you, and if they don't know how you're wrestling with the Word of God, and what the Spirit of God has said to you, and how this is challenging the way you always lived your story, if they can't connect with you, then you're just talking at them. But I would suggest that Facebook and all that stuff that's happening, people want community. And and that's the other half, really, of what we're talking about. We happen to be talking at the moment about kind of our churches, and we're thinking about kind of the weekend event. But we're more than a weekend event, right? I mean, we are more than that. And so there's a whole application, especially when we're talking connection. That's what we're talking about here, right? Tomorrow afternoon, you're going to tell your story to 3 other people. You got those instructions, right? Okay. And I'm going to tell mine first to all of you. But you're going to tell your story. And the whole reason is I want you to see what happens when you tell your story in some detail and others hear your story. Because we need both. And story is at the heart of both of them. We're going to talk Wednesday afternoon about the process of teaching and preaching. But let me just say that if you want a weekend service to reflect what we're talking about here in terms of relationship, the communication, and a lot of orality is primarily around communication, it's got to have story woven in it. And part of the story has to be the preacher's story as well. Okay, that's a different way of thinking about what we do. All right, production. When I write this, what I am primarily interested in is 8 to 10 weeks out of planning. Okay? You cannot meet on Wednesday and plan Sunday service. It'd be a process for producing it. Even if you don't like the word production, and I would understand why you might not think that way, we do produce a service every week. We may not produce it well, but we produce it. Okay, for production to happen, there has to be planning that starts usually with this talk right here. We're building it around it. I mean, y'all not moving the pulpit to the side, are you? No, you're going to leave the pulpit in the center. That's who Baptists are. So that means that the production is going to start with this right here. But it takes 8 to 10 weeks. Okay, make it 6 if you want. Start somewhere, make it 4. But it takes time to produce a service. Okay, if you're still producing like some big services at Easter or at Christmas or stuff like that, if you still do that, or if you remember when it was done, weren't those some of the best events? Okay, how long did you have to work to get ready for that? There has to be rehearsals where everybody who's going to go on stage on Sunday is... The only reason I'm saying that is not because this is biblical per se. I can't show you a text, but what I can tell you is that we live in a culture where this is all people see. This is their diet all the time. The sound is always right. The lights are always right. The people are always on cue. It's rare when somebody's not. And they're used to that. And when they don't feel that, it does something. Okay, our other option is to say, we're not doing that at all. And that is an option. And I'm not trying to get you to be BRCC. I have no interest in that. This is the communication part of orality. It is where we live. And most of our people far from God, not all, but many are on this side of it. It's 80% of North America. It's most of the people. If we're going to communicate well, we have to do that. So, if you had a missionary, and you were supporting them, and they came home and they said to you, and you asked them, hey, have you learned the language yet? No. That was pretty hard. Okay. Well, what are you doing about language? Well, I talk to all the people that can speak my language. Really? Yeah. How many people are those that can speak your language there? Well, not that many, but everybody who wants what I got, you know what? They learn it. Okay. Well, how are you doing with the culture? And you already know the answer to that, because culture is learned through language, by the way. Okay. Well, you know, I don't like their culture. You know, I think my culture is better, and what we all really need is a biblical culture.
That's why I teach King James.
Yeah.
Work for the disciples.
Yeah. And okay, what are you thinking? You're gonna, and it costs you $100,000 a year to keep this guy on the mission field. You got anything better to do with your money? Yes, you do. And you all know that. You all know that. We all get that. None of us would tolerate that if we knew about it. But I'm just telling you, we're tolerating it all the time. And tolerate, I don't mean like, well, I ain't tolerating that anymore. And I don't mean that. We just keep paying for it, and it's not working. And I think we have an obligation. And here's what I want to say about all this. Here's what we did in Africa. I put this divide here for a reason. Imagine this is a tree. What we did is we bent this for the sake of that. That's what we started doing. And that's what I'm asking you to do today. I'm not asking you to quit being literate. I think there are a lot of advantages to this, many. But I'm asking you to take what you have and to take these people seriously and be missionaries to them. And I want to suggest that everything now is cross-cultural. There is no monocultural work anymore in the world. Our world is highly diversified because we have the internet. We are a world economy, whether we like it or not. Ahmadinejad says something stupid, and we pay 50 more cents a gallon for fuel. We live in that world. And so what I'm asking us to do is to recognize that everybody is extremely diversified. Let's take what we know and let's use it to serve others. It was Jim Slack who first really helped me understand that these people who are far from God, and they can be anywhere on the range, right? Now we've got a different chart. People who know Him and people who don't know Him, who are not connected to Him. They have a right upon us from God's perspective, and we have an obligation to them. They are not obligated to become like us. We are obligated to become like them. Isn't that what the incarnation's all about? That's the proof right there. We are followers of His. Ordinary people loved Him, and there was a reason. It's because He came to them. And He took their language and their culture seriously. I don't know if you know this, but only 5% of the population in Jesus' day even had the potential to become a Pharisee. Pharisee. Is that? Aren't there two S's in Pharisee? Okay. Only 5% of the population could even become a Pharisee. Now, if you were trying to get a movement going, what does that tell you? Don't do it that way, because whatever else, I can't get a movement with 5%. I've got to get the masses, right? I got 80% here. I got to get the masses involved. I have to communicate our message the way they do it. Isn't that what Jesus did?
Yeah, He cared about people more than He cared about His own comfort.
His own life. He knew what was happening. Why do you think these guys wanted to kill Him? Because He was taking their money. He was undercutting their authority. He was undercutting their influence, right? And so it's like, okay, we're done here. We're putting this guy, we're getting rid of this guy. He's in our way. So Jesus had access to 95% of the population because He took what we're talking about and He came to them. And it was the genius of what He did. And it will work again today. The gospel's still good news. By definition, if it's not good news, it's not the gospel. If what you're telling people is not good news, it's not the gospel. And so by definition, it's good news. Jesus came, and if we will, that involves both communication and relationship. We're responsible